Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can definitely hear you.
Is it too loud?
You know, I've learned to deal with it.
It's like your signature sound. Everyone kind of has it.
Now this mic smells like my daughter's breath because yesterday I let her sing and she's just like, it's great. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
9:30 is tough for me.
Is it?
Is it?
Yeah. No, not like I'm not awake. I've been awake forever. I'm just saying getting kids sorted and everything else that I was just like, dude, 9:30 snuck up with a quickness for me, but here I am.
Can I start it off with something? Last night I was thinking about somebody sent me something that I played on, and I don't want to like listen to it. Do you guys have an issue with listening to your playing or like listening to something that you played on? Like, has that ever been a thing?
Wait, so someone sent you a song that you played?
I mean, like, so I played on a song. I know what it sounds like, but it got mixed and all that other stuff.
And you're nervous.
But I'm not even nervous. I just don't like, it's like when you hear your voice, like right now when we do the podcast, when we listen to it, I sound like Spicoli, but, do you guys have that issue or you don't care? You're like,
I have that issue listening back in the control room.
Agreed.
In the studio. I don't, once the song is finished.
Yeah.
It blends into the song. I listen to the song. I don't, nothing stands out to me in the playing, but like listening back after a take is brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and demos. I can't really listen back to demos.
Yeah, I love demos. It's so fun. And I think maybe I get demoitis too often, but and it's not to say that I'm not proud of what I did, but it's just something I think maybe just my whole life psychologically, I'm just like, I think
for me, that is with singing. Like, not that I sing a ton, but that's usually it for me. Like singing, I'm like, oh,
interesting.
All right,
yeah.
I don't wanna,
Yes.
But drumming, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like,
sure,
depends on what it is. But I'm with Jordan. I think that when you're like, all right, come out of the control room, let's listen back. Usually, I'm just like, ooh.
Yeah, once it's mixed and mastered, usually I go like,
you're
God,
good.
Man, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Like,
raw.
but hearing it raw, like off the board, it's like, that is.
Yeah, especially Jordan, because we got to beat detected the hell out of your plan, dude.
Yeah, no doubt. The last weather thing that we did in Florida with JJ.
Did you grid it at all?
No, but I didn't do a full single take. I would do a verse, a measure of a verse beat, and then we just flew it.
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
This is one of my favorite discussions.
So many people, so many producers or just, musicians have such strong opinions about that. And depending on who you go to,
the kind of music too.
It depends on the kind of music, depends on the band. I understand that. But I've found certain people that they actually don't care what the style is or whatever. They're like hard lined on like, this is how you record. Obviously that's like usually an older generation. It's like, it's almost like they're trying to recreate like, dude, well, like the Rolling Stones had to do full takes. And I'm like, guess what? It's a new era. Like they would have probably done the same thing, So a lot of bands I do know that are like, yo, we did the album live. And I'm always like, I don't care. Like if it doesn't,
well, here's the other thing. It's a lot of that was they were only doing it that way because editing tape is fucking gnarly and takes forever. But it's like, but there people are like, but the sound, and I'm like, yeah, but I can track my drums to Pro Tools, bounce it to tape and back into Pro Tools. Yeah. And it sounds just like if I had recorded it straight to the tape. So
I think that's the thing is like for producers specifically, we've been to a couple, we could either bleep their names or I just won't say it. But I remember like, so we did so much with Aaron Sprinkle and Aaron and I were like vibed so well. And we were very much on the like, dude, get a ripping take. Let's mess with this. Let's come back. Then we'll do the verses. And we approached it very much like that. And then I went to someone right after Aaron that was so
his name was
but he was like, we did so much like pre-production and writing and all this stuff, but he was so adamant about full takes, and it sucked the life and fun out of it for me because I was so concentrating on getting through to the end of the song. Like I would literally get towards the end of the song and kind of have a not great fail, and he'd be like, all right, start over. And I just remember being like, dude, can we just punch it? And so for me, I've like swung as you do when something like is you don't like it, you swing so far the other way. I'm now like, I refuse. I'm like, I don't even if I know the whole song and I can play well, I'm like, I'm doing a verse and then I'm stopping. no matter what. Even if I know I could go to the chorus, I don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, but it's situational too. I mean,
Each band's different, for
like
sure.
you know, take a band like, I don't know, Big Thief, like that band is not going to do.
Love that band.
They're probably tracking all the instruments live though, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would imagine that they're all in the same room. They might even be doing vocals at the same time too.
Yeah.
but
Which is cool. Like,
No.
If that's natural, do that. But I'm saying the forced of like trying to do that if your band doesn't call for it, I find that to be like,
also
contrived.
genre wise, rock, like the type of stuff that Amber Lynn's making, it actually would be a disservice to do it all at the same time because there's no clarity of signal. It makes it actually makes the final mixes will sound better if the mixer has everything nice and separated in, because it's like people are like metal or whatever. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been to or like listened to a live metal record, but like it's noise. Like there's so much like fast stuff happening that there's no like clarity of actually any of the hits on the drums or any of that sort of stuff. So it makes sense to do everything separately.
Well, that's what I mean by it's situational, because we've all worked with different people. I've worked with different people, and it's either same thing, Nate, full take, or I literally play 2 bars of something and that's the drum part, you know what I mean? And then just duplicate and that's the song, you know? But it's at the same time too, I don't know. I think lately I've leaned towards heavy manipulation just because that's where my brain is at right now. But because it's the same thing.
Band name.
What?
Heavy manipulation.
But anyway, I mean, but no, I mean, I don't know. It's like you're saying, Nate, like doing a full take can be terrifying. It's like so many emotions that go into that. It's, you know.
See, I like doing the full takes.
See, then there we go. Let's go.
See, this is why it's great.
It's
different.
I would love to do a full take, and then if it called to patch in a fill or whatever part, I would do that. But I always liked at least having at the first go just to play the song.
I mean, I like that. Here's the thing. I like that too sometimes. And like for me, just personally, it depends on the situation, you know?
Yeah.
It really does.
I mean, there's also, when we were making Blushing with Copeland, all those are full takes, but then Aaron went in and cut them up and moved a fill that I did in verse 2 to verse 1.
It was pointless.
Well, yeah, I mean, to a point, but it was like, some of those like a lot of that stuff though, like those drums were demoed digitally that he sent me that I learned like the meat and potatoes parts, but all the fills were like improv just in my takes.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm not a good enough drummer to have listened to the meat and potatoes parts and improved some of those fills without going into them, like playing through into them.
I see. Yeah.
I can't just sit at a kit and do a fill on time. I need to come out of like the main rhythm and fill into that. And you also doing that, you capture like the slight speed up and slight slow down.
Well, that's another thing too. I think there are times if I'm doing something on like if I'm playing on something, I do like the subtle, like almost, it's not like, you could call it a fuck up, but just the looseness of it, you know what I mean? And that for that song is great. But then like there's other stuff that I've played on where like it has to be like, has to be on the grid. You know what I mean?
I think I think that really is song by song. And even more so the more I've been like writing and recording with JJ, we've been like going this other approach of like get in, let it rip, try this thing, whatever. And then we just end up like leaving it for the most part. We're just not overthinking like almost anything, where I feel like back in the day, there's just so much overthinking, even on the full takes. I listen to that album and I can hear my brain. Now I'm just like, dude, hit record, because it used to be scary. Like, all right, we're recording. It's good. It's like, just
it's
keep
forever
doing it, you know?
I mean, we even doing the last weather record there with JJ, none of those songs were, the skeletons were written, but there were no drum parts. So I
added to it. Yeah.
We went in, I listened through the electronic tracks with no drums that Michael had sent. And we were like, okay, what's the drum part for the song? So a lot of it was like, I'm just going to play a couple measures of, like, there was one song we did where I played at halftime. I played one measure halftime, and then we I love that timed it in the software, just sped it up 200 and flew it through the song. And we're like, there's a hi-hat thing in there that's like literally humanly impossible to play, but I'm like, I'm never gonna have to play it live. Who gives a shit? Like, it sounds cool.
Well, it's
whatever.
also, yeah, I mean, Nate, like you were saying, I have arguments all the time with people where I'm like, why are we redoing this? Like it's
I'm
already
a big fan of not that at all.
We do that a lot with demos. Like if the demo has a cool
Just leave it.
guitar thing that Michael just accidentally played or a bass thing, we're just
can't
like,
recreate it either.
We'll just reamp it and it's it's
you
fine.
can manipulate it, but dude, I'm such a big fan of that.
on our last album, one of the songs is drums that I recorded onto my iPhone.
Yes.
And that is those are the drums.
So
and
cool.
like, that's the thing where it was like, we tried recreating it and it just did not feel the same.
We use the GoPro compression.
The GoPro is amazing.
The first Weather record, there's two songs that have drum tracks that are just
that's so cool.
a GoPro overhead.
Yo, there's another. This is for any Anne Berlin fans listening. I love talking about stuff like this, but we had a song on the EP that we did before called Circles, and Christian wrote the melody for it, and it's like this kind of poppy-ish melody over some other stuff. And when we were doing it, I was like, dude, I feel like at the highest octave of this could be sick. And the guy doing the production is like, dude, no one can hit that way too high. Like it's I don't even know what key, but he was like, yo, that's this note. Like that's like, so, and I was like, dude, I can do it. I was like, I know I could do it. It might not be like beautiful, but I was like, I can hit it and it's good. And he's like, dude, I just don't see how you could. So I had just got my wisdom teeth pulled like 3 weeks before. So it was like kind of healing. So on the drive home from St. Pete, I was like, dude, I'm gonna voice note it and send it to him of me just screaming it. So I held my phone back and I was just driving on the bridge. And I think I put an AirPod in to where I could hear it from my computer, so I was like on key. And dude, I kept doing it over and over, and it was so high. But I made my teeth bleed.
Were you also high?
No, it was like weeks later, but it wasn't fully healed. But I made my mouth bleed because I was like, I had to scream so much. But dude, I sent it to him, and he literally writes me back that night, and he's like, dude. He's like, this sounds insane. And then he used that. That's the chorus from my phone. He's like, you can't
awesome.
redo. He goes, because if I have you sit in front of a mic, you're going to stress yourself out.
Yeah.
He's like, you will never be able to hit this again. So if you listen to that song, the high part, like screaming, the chorus is just from my iPhone. Like no mic, no nothing.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Stuff like that's funny.
Here's one thing about my recording experiences, and that's that I haven't actually worked with a real producer ever. Even with like Say Anything, we basically had Max's home studio and Garen basically engineered it, but that was it. I never had a producer for that.
That's where you did drums there. Wow.
That's where we recorded the drums. And so I don't really have a frame of reference for some of the stuff you guys are talking about, but in some ways I feel like I wish I had that experience, but I don't really see, how do I put this? I don't know if there's a lot of value
in a producer. Oh, let's go.
In having some producers.
Yeah, I have
What do you guys think about that?
Let's talk.
I've had 50% experiences where we self-produce and 50% where we do it with somebody. And I think there's a lot of value but I have learned a lot in both scenarios.
Here's what I'll say. I think you just have to find the right person. That's very hard to do.
Agreed. And I also think it depends on what your goal is. There are some producers, if your goal is to make a hit and be the biggest, you know what I mean? Like I think that is.
Well, I also think sound development, like at the beginning of a band's life, even if it's people who've played for a long time.
Oh, that's huge.
I mean, we came into The Weather, for example.
That's a good point.
Both coming from other bands that had made a bunch of recordings or whatever, but we didn't really know what that band was. And actually our demos sound so vastly different than the record we made. And we found that band in the studio with Chad.
Yeah, 100%.
And Jared producing it because we were like, this is all the stuff we're listening to. This is what the song is. This is how we're sounding in this moment. And they sort of made us, they sort of made our sound,
Dive deeper into that. What part of it changed, or what did they do? How they morph it?
That band came out of a folk rock band, and we had a lot of those tendencies still, and everybody was sort of in that mode. We were writing a lot of that stuff with synths and all of that sort of stuff. And when we got there, they sort of were like, these synth parts are
banjo-y.
Yeah, these synth parts are cool. We were doing all this Talking Headsy weird like synthy stuff. Like, let's put that on this other song. And then 12 days into recording, you're like, fuck, this is like we sound, that's what we actually went into to make that record still being called Campfire OK. We decided to change the band's name because it was sounding so different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those, like, the scenario, the place that you, first of all, I do think like getting out of hometown and going somewhere else to make a record also had a big impact, or whether that's a producer and the place that you're doing it becomes sort of a producer of its own.
Even just having an outside ear on stuff is such a huge part of,
and having somebody because like the band, for the most part, the guys in the band are never gonna seriously come to you with like a drum suggestion. That's a technical suggestion because they don't speak that language. But having a producer in the other room that goes like, try doing the kick here and like bump and doing that, and you're like, I would never come up with that, and the band guys are like, I don't even know what you guys are talking about. Yeah. And then you hear it back and you're like, shit, that was helpful. That's like actually helpful, you know.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess they're valuable sometimes.
I think Jordan said it at first, and I think that's so huge, is if you're a new band, like if you're like, hey, we started this band and you get signed, producers like not absolutely, but I would say the majority of the time very necessary. Like
more important, I think.
Without Aaron Sprinkle, like, dude, we would not be the band we were. So like going to him early on, we had good songs, but then he was like, had the ear because he's been doing it longer to be like, yo, this song doesn't need to be 4.5 minutes long. It could be 3.5, and I'll show you why.
Right.
Now, how much we've learned, we all realized like are now those people. Like we work on other people's stuff and we help produce, and our brain thinks. And again, it really depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to make a hit? Are you trying to just be creative? And finding that balance of like, sometimes producers are like a huge, huge part of it. And I just think for us, Anberlin now, like we don't really need that because I think that we've learned.
You know who you are.
Yeah, you have the experience, and
yeah. I think Sprinkle helped you shorten. You would have gotten there eventually, but he shortened the runway a lot.
Exactly. I mean, our first album had to be that, like, and so by the time we were like, you know, have grown on, because I've worked with a ton of producers. Like, we only stopped using a producer when we got back together, which was 2021. So like Anberlin's whole career had producers. We didn't do anything alone. Like Lowborn would be the closest in 2014, but Sprinkle still did all the vocals for that. And then Aaron Marsh, we did it. He was more of an engineer, but
anyway, even in this, the way you're doing it now, you have
other people in the room.
JJ there who's maybe not producing it, but he's going like,
yes,
I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Or
100%.
like, well, how about try this or like whatever.
I think you always need someone like that. But yeah, I fully agree.
The word producer though is such a broad thing though, especially nowadays. Like I think everybody is technically a producer to some extent.
To some extent, yeah.
I think there's the engineer who's maybe throwing out ideas and sonic ideas, but then like working with Chad again in Oklahoma, he's actually like looking at the song, tabbing it out and going like, this is actually your chorus. Maybe take the bridge from song 5 and that's the verse for song 1. And he's actually like, he's produced, he's cutting it up, he's moving it around. He's pitching us the sonic stuff and he's engineering, but he's also like he's becoming another member of the band and coming to those songs. Like you shed those songs for so long that you get demoitis, or you're just like, I'm fucking done with this song. I just want to track it and move on.
Yeah.
And he's there going like, well, there's still room for improvement here. Or like, this is fine, but it needs, an outro or an intro.
Well, even like Nate, even the high note thing, that's producing. Like you were like, I'm gonna sing this note. It's producing. You know what I mean? It's not
for sure. No, I agree that is a broad thing, especially now.
But it is interesting that these guys that are actually known as producers, they all vary so much because some of the guys are sonically involved as well, or they're just purely
just writing, just like the top line or something.
Yes, which is also interesting. But I personally, from all the people like I've personally worked with, most of them actually are both, and it's really interesting to see somebody come up with a part for the songwriting, but then also it grows even more
when they can like
sonic
sauce to
so like
it
just it like blossoms into this thing, and you're like wow, I would have the same thing. I would have never done that. You know what I mean? So it's like there's
there's also the business, like young bands, a producer's good too for like business questions or how to be in a band, or like, we want to get a guest vocalist and you worked with this other band, and like, do you think this person would sing on our track? And like, they're also like overhearing the business calls with your manager while you're in the studio, and they're like, I wouldn't do that. Like, you know, or that sounds like a great idea. I think you should get on that, or whatever it is, you know.
I also think there's a lot of producers that have just been, and we've talked about this, you know, there's albums where you're like, dude, I love this album. Like, we should work with that producer. And then you got to think, how much was the producer and how much was the band? Because I'm not going to name names either, but we've been to a couple producers that were like, dude, if we do it with this, it's going to be like this. And then we're like, that wasn't at all like we thought. And I'm like, it's probably because that band was just one of the biggest parts of it, and that producer worked with him. But a lot of times everyone goes, oh, he produced that album, that's why it sounds that way. But you forget how much of the band is going to influence that. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, the producer isn't a silver bullet. You know, it's like, it's not, they're not, it's not going to,
so much to it, but a lot of careers.
I also think the mixer has a big part in that, and the room that the producer works in has a big
there's so many variables. I just mean that so many producers.
Nowadays producers also mix too. I mean, like it's not, there's so many like you guys are saying, there's so many variables.
So much. I mean, now we just sound, I feel like this podcast is going to turn into us sounding like not even salty, but just talking about the way things were, but it is just so different now. Like,
I mean,
producers are minted because they are a part of an album, and I truly, like, they have no business still being some producer that's supposed to, because I'm like, they were just in the right place at the right time.
Sprinkle's a perfect example of like, he produced or engineered or whatever you want to call Pedro's Control. He also did Amber Lynn's records, and those two records could not be more universes apart. That's obviously the Amber Lynn records. Like, even, you know, Under Oath does tracking at JJ's place too, and your record and their record sound a lot different.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's like,
that's getting into the weeds of like, also just people are playing differently. It's different players.
Of course. And so I think the fact that like Control was done in the same room or similar rooms that like early Amber Lynn stuff was on, and they sonically are different. Songwriting is different. Like, there's a lot of variables.
Well, drum wise, Nate is different from Aaron. Aaron's different from Bazan. It's you know, which is cool. Which that's honestly one of my favorite things about just music and albums in general. Is getting to hear just like the uniqueness of players on an album, and it's
we've
awesome.
talked about that, like recording, how hard you hit, what cymbals did you use, how did you play, you know what I mean? Like
head choice, drum choice.
There's a whole, variable of things that I think.
What flavor of incense you're burning in the
yeah. Are you under the influence or not under the influence? Like, it's,
we talked to Tim from Manchester Orchestra, and I really liked his little nugget of information about the nut takes. I mean, just talking back about drumming and doing different takes and playing all the way through, and then just having another take just to go nuts. And
I think all my takes are nut takes.
Yeah. I didn't have a name for it, but I didn't want to be like, oh, I do the same thing. But
they're called Nate takes, Tim.
They're Nate takes.
Nate takes.
No, but I mean, that's kind of JJ and I will be like, dude, let's just do a ripper, like go nuts and see. Yeah. And sometimes my brain will just like unlock and I'll start doing something dumb. Actually, how it started was as long ago as our Amber Lynn's second record, one of our bigger songs, Paper Than Him. There's a part on the second verse where I'm like playing this verse, and I do this like really drummy thing with the hi-hat. It's like so drummy, and I did it as a joke, and Sprinkle was like, that was sick. And I was like, that was to be funny. And he's like, leave it. And so now it's just funny because I look back on that and I'm like, that was me being over the top then, but it unlocked something. It was like, oh, it is cool. And if you listen to it, no one's going to be like, whoa, that was like so not tasteful. But now I will go through and try and do something insane, and sometimes JJ was like, oh dude, that was cool, and I'm like, for real? It's like, I'll listen back to it, I'm like, oh, that was cool.
Well, my thing at this point in my career, I'm not trying to I feel like for a while I was trying to impress drummers, and now I don't care. I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? It's not, I know that's early on that can be a thing, because you're like, when you're practicing and you first start playing, you're literally playing as much as you can because that's just where your brain is at. And then I think eventually you unlearn and kind of go inward instead of outward with your playing. I mean, me personally, I'm not everyone's like that, but
No, I feel like you're trying to make your mark.
I do think it's good to talk about this stuff because you remember the website Absolute Punk? It's called something else.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
every once in a while, I will still visit that site and read comments when it's like, they post an article about a friend's band or, you know, a design project that I worked on or whatever.
Jordan goes there to talk shit.
What's your username?
Well, I don't have a, sometimes I wish that I had an account.
What's your username?
I don't have one and I should, and I didn't, and that's on purpose because some of the fucking people on that website talk with such authority on subjects of like, and they're so incredibly incorrect that it's shocking. Like,
Well, yeah,
the
that's
internet.
that's the internet.
no, I know,
yeah.
I know, but it's like that. I'm saying it's like, it'll be like one kid is like, well, they did that record in this town. And I'm
Oh,
like,
it's
I
just
worked
wrong,
on that.
just
And
false.
that's
Yeah.
incorrect information. And then everybody piles on going
Once
like,
again, that's the internet. But yeah.
That is, dude.
but it's like another level of it. And they talk with such authority, like this record is their biggest one because it sold this much. And I remember when I worked at a label, I had access to SoundScan. I was like, that's not even remotely close.
yeah, dude.
Well,
But
the crazy thing
fans.
about talking like this is even early on, I think I thought the same way, and there was just no. I'm glad that we talk about it because there was no place where people were talking about what we're talking about, I guess. So like I had no one to really relate to other than opening like a drum magazine, but even then it wasn't even that, you know. Which is it's nice to have that, but then
Well,
again,
I think we've all had these conversations with each other or other drummers that we're friends with or other musicians and bands, and you talk about the business of touring and, you know, festivals or whatever, but like those have never been heard publicly. Like even the talking about when we were Young Fest and how well it was put on and that sort of stuff. We've all had those conversations individually, but like,
Yeah, but not like this. Yeah,
no,
normal, like quote unquote civilians don't know about that stuff.
for
you know?
sure.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
knowing how a festival's run, like
Right.
That's also not like interview type
Or
of
that
stuff.
we're
You-
thinking
No.
about that when we're
Yeah.
there. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
like that you're sitting in your hotel looking out and seeing people in line and being
Yeah,
like,
and laughing. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
There's such a debate within bands that I think this is a funny conversation. You know, with the rise of the internet and Instagram and Facebook, and where everyone's voice can be heard
yeah,
at all times.
bring back gatekeeping. That's what I say.
Just, dude, I love that. But like, it's just it's a strange go because it's like I'd say the overall consensus between 4 bands is like you never comment back, right? That's just it's like seems
course,
to be the
yeah.
rule. It's like
Never engage. Yeah.
fans are going to say whatever they want. You know, the most angry is the loudest. It's the most annoying. Like, you know, it's like they don't speak for everyone. It's like all this stuff, and I understand all that. But I do, you know, we've internally as a band, obviously we've gone through a lot in this last year, and seeing some of these comments of just like people that are like, I'm going to say whatever I want, and there's zero repercussion. And if someone from the band responds, they are instantly heavily offended. Like, how dare you respond? Like, they almost know the rule. I'm like, who told you that bands aren't allowed? You know what I mean? So they're like, well, I'm allowed to say whatever I want, but if you say something back, they're like, I've been a long time fan. I'm like, that doesn't mean you get to like, you know. So it's been a funny thing going through it.
Yeah, the comments of like, I don't like this record as much as the last one. It's like, shut the fuck up, loser. Who gives a shit?
But
don't listen to it, you fucking nerd.
That's my thing is like, we have 8 other albums. Just go put them on repeat or whatever.
Right.
But also I have another theory that's I'm batting 100, and I think it's going to be funny to bring it up. But so with everything that's gone down, I have noticed that 100% of the comments that are bad, like, you know, this sucks or whatever, you click their bio, there's a scripture in their bio.
Yeah, oh yeah. And they're private.
It's I'm not kidding. Everyone think it's like when I made this joke or I brought this up, everyone's like, I don't know. I've sent
that one that
screenshots of all of them.
That one that Maddie screenshotted or whatever, that guy's like, the Lord is my shepherd, and he's like, you're the temporary singer, you stupid shit, or like whatever.
Yeah,
he said something insane.
He literally was like, "Don't get comfy," like, and as if the dude is a part of our band. Like he was like, "Remember, you're just a touring singer. Don't get to." I'm like, who do you think? I'm just like,
but this is what the kid wants, though. You know what I mean?
And I think that's why people are like, don't give him that satisfaction. But I'm like, I'll be honest, it's pretty satisfying to say something back. Like,
I think, yeah, I'm one to not respond usually, but there's a time and a place where I think you should respond and push back, because some people are just totally awful.
Some people post comments where they're like, I think it's okay to
It's like
post
constructive. Yeah.
or in that scenario, it's like, I think it's okay for somebody who's bought every record or whatever to go like,
Don't love
like
it.
some of those comments are like, I really miss Steven, but like, damn, this song rules. That's fine.
Great.
That's
but
cool.
But to like threaten your new singer or be like, fuck you, I can't listen to your band anymore. It's like, take a long walk off a shore
Yeah.
pier.
I'm also on the side that like even if you push back and respond with something, it's not going to change their mind. It's only going
Of
to
course.
continue to fuel that fire. And
I just don't read them anymore.
Yeah.
I just don't read
I mean,
comments.
I don't think we don't sit there and doom scroll and be like, I need to read every comment. But I will say it is fun to respond kind of like in the same manner of just like, guess what? I don't care. Like, find that balance. But anyway, I just have found that it's been funny to see this pattern of like the most judgmental, harsh shit has been people that are like Isaiah 47:6 or whatever. I'm like, what?
It would be, all those people on Cameo doing stuff. A great app would be like for bands to have the Liam and Noel Gallagher write them responses to comments, and
That's actually
like I would
incredible.
pay
Yeah.
like an AI
$50.
generator for
or
Liam
that would even be scour all their interviews and just come up with insults for people.
Oh my
to
God,
like
dude.
repost them. Unbelievable.
That's a good
What's
one.
funny is like those guys are so. The funny thing is also their comments are always so funny because they're kind of disconnected from the.
They don't
current-
read the comments. They're just mean in
They're
general.
just mean,
Like,
but they're
it's
also saying
amazing.
stuff. They're saying stuff that like you read it and you laugh, but you're also like that makes no sense.
Yeah. Oh, did you see? One of them thought that Aesop Rocky's name was WhatsApp Ricky.
Yeah, which is actually a sick name, but I mean,
I also want to know
So
if
sick.
they're just trolling everyone because they could easily.
There is
like,
an
they-
element of that.
there's
sure.
gotta be some level of like, that's because that's such.
I think
a
they both
sick
know that
word.
if they're a curmudgeon in the news, like people are going to read it, and so they.
Of course.
it's the same. It's what Trump's.
but have you guys seen the video? Have you seen the video of him interviewing like an elementary school class?
Yes.
Like they ask him
So
questions, and the way that he responds is like, oh, he's not always like a
an awful
curmudgeon,
person.
but it's funny. But even his answers are. I'm like, oh man, dude, you're talking to a child.
Yeah, they're like asking him serious questions, and he's like,
Yeah.
You are going to cut all this, but I did notice on the Seahorse episode
he's buffing
because it breaks out certain parts of the conversation. One of them just says insider trading.
That's really
So we
really
probably,
funny.
I think we should, if we could fix that, maybe
What in
that would
Spotify
be good.
does?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually can't fix that.
Whatever. It's fine.
Also, I mean, what are they going to click it and then realize there's actually no insider trade?
Yeah, there's nothing
Wait,
in
what
there.
episode? What episode is that?
I think it's the Seahorse one.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Seahorse
Seahorse
one.
Capital. Should we talk about the songs? The songs that shaped us?
All right. So, what are the two songs? If you had to boil it down to two songs, and I know this pains you, Ben,
I hate this question.
what that you can pinpoint and go, I that really shaped the way that I play. It doesn't have to sound like you. Matter of fact, it probably doesn't sound like you, but you listen
Like
to it
what
and you
stands
go like,
out in your head of like,
Who wants to go first? Reed, you go first.
Reed, you go first. You never go first. Yeah, you.
I can now, to clarify, these are songs that helped shape me after I already started playing. So it's not like it helped me learn necessarily, but at least think about the style I drum and then songwriting. So the first one that comes to mind is Jimmy Eat World's Cautioners from Bleed American.
Yep.
So there's that beat. It goes do do da da dooch dooch da ch dooch doo da. It's such a simple song. It's a straight time signature. There's nothing crazy about it, but it just reprogrammed how I think about using different elements of drums, hi-hat, snare, just being offbeat in some parts, and just be more creative in how you're approaching a very simple song. That's the first one. And then the second is going to be Coheed and Cambria's Time Consumer. And the reason why is, I was early on in like my drumming journey, I guess you could say, but just the technicality of that song. I never heard anything like it before, and just how that song just is a roller coaster to me, and just how those parts seamlessly fit together. It didn't make sense at the time, and I think my drumming and Say Anything helped. It helped like frame, like be able to actually be able to play Say Anything songs, because those songs are just so intricate in their parts, and almost like I can look back at that song from Coheed and think about how that helped shape me and my playing, and be able to play and Say Anything. And then can I throw one more? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Take one of mine.
So it's a honorable mention. It's Muse from Frangers.
Oh,
it is the
Mew,
song.
not Muse.
Yeah, MEW.
Got it. Thank God. I was about to throw my mic.
It's MEW. It's the song "Am I Right?" No from Frangers.
Love that.
Yeah,
Love
it's an
that.
incredible album. Incredible
And
song,
that,
too.
I don't know if it necessarily shaped my drumming, but it shaped how I think about songwriting. And it just blew my mind when I first heard that song. I think, Nate, you were the first one to show me that album, and that's the opener.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
I mean,
incredible.
that beat
It just,
is like iconic too.
yeah, and that one just stuck with me. And from then on, I think it really helped shape how I think about songwriting in general. But those are my three.
Sick.
It's so hard though. There's so many other songs I can point to, but I think
Of course.
those are like the 2 to 3 that.
Dude, just take mine too. Just do like
Nope.
4 more.
Ben has to answer. Ben has to
you guys
answer.
go. I'm done.
Ben, you're next.
Who you want me to
Ben
go?
is next, and he has
All
to
right.
answer.
I don't have songs in particular, but I have albums. The first one is Metallica's Master of Puppets. It's mainly because
Great drummer.
well, I mean, you gotta admit. I mean, early on, I know people. This is controversial, but I think early on, Lars is pretty damn good.
I agree.
Yeah, why is he such a punchline?
He
Well,
gets
I mean-
he gets a lot of hate, but I'm not a Metallica fan, but I don't, there's something about him that I'm like, yeah, but he's like a character. He's got his own thing. And who cares if he's not like some shredding perfect drummer? That's overrated and boring in my opinion.
Well, also, I mean, my whole thing is, I think drummers, if you can, like I've said this before, but if you put an album on within like the first 10 seconds, you know who the drummer is. I think that's pretty awesome. Like
Yeah.
he has a sound, whatever.
He's the
But,
only guy that could play in that band, I think.
definitely, yeah. Because all the accents and stuff and the weird places that he puts them, I think is I don't do that, but I think is part of his whole world. But the reason why is my uncle's the one that got me into drumming, and when we were like really small kids, he would let us just like run around the house, and he'd be blasting Master of Puppets, and it was just chaos. And I can always remember it, and it stuck with me because early on when I first started playing drums, that's really all I listened to because that's what he listened to, and it always stuck with me. I don't play like that, and I mean, I don't know, but it just always stuck with me as far as drumming early on. It kind of, I think, formed me, but it was the foundation of what eventually became how I played. But
Yeah, for sure.
so that's one of them, and then the other one is I literally just thought about it within the last 5 minutes. Is Jagged Little Pill.
Oh, damn.
Nice.
It was like one of the first CDs I got, and I just burned that CD, just burned a hole through it. It was always in my CD player. I listened to it for forever. Also because when you're a kid, you can't buy a bunch of CDs. So
Who played on that? Was it Taylor Hawkins? Because I know he toured
He
with
played
Galantis.
live. I think
Matt, how do you say LAUG?
Matt Log or Loge
Yeah,
or
Log or
whatever
something like
the-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he tracked. He did later.
Yeah, later. And I know like Flea played on it. Like I think there might be one or two. I think Taylor Hawkins might have
didn't
played
know
on one
Flea
song.
I didn't know.
Well, he
Flea
didn't play on the whole
played
thing. He
that.
played on a few songs, but
Wow.
yeah, that album always stuck with me too. And I
Come on
think
the
it's
pod, Flea.
yeah,
For real.
it's so sick.
That would be amazing.
But yeah, that's another one too, because it's just, there's I don't know. We talked about it earlier about simplicity, and I think I've later into my career just have discovered simplicity and really tried to like embrace it, and that those songs are great and the drumming's great.
I can definitely see that record in your drumming, especially
sure.
with Group Love.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's it's also one of the biggest albums ever, but yeah.
Literally, I think it's sold. Hasn't it sold more physical copies than any other
Yeah, I think so.
record.
You know, it's actually full
Seriously?
circle too.
Yeah.
She Alanis sang with Pink on the tour last fall, and in the hallway, I was walking one way and she was walking the next, like towards me,
dude, just
and
lose
she
it.
looked at me and she smiled and said hi, and it was like full circle. I was like, oh my god,
Yeah, shit
That's
your
actually
pants.
sick.
yeah. So
I know that
that-
record's about Dave Coulier from Full House.
wait, real,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
that's a bit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were
Interesting.
dating. That just came up on another podcast. He was on where somebody asked him about it, or maybe it was hers. I don't remember. But they just it just came out recently, like in the last year, that's who it was about.
Oh,
Whoa,
jeez. Did you
that's
watch
kinda
that
crazy.
documentary?
Yeah, I did.
No,
It was awesome. The
It's
one
really
about-
good.
Yeah, it's really good.
All
right, Nate.
all right, Jordan, you're up, or Nate, you're going last. Jordan, Nate, you're up. Even though I know you don't have it.
Nate hasn't
Yeah, I
thought
saw
about
you
it.
listening on your phone.
Yeah, he's like maybe this was.
No, I was trying to. I searched cool drum songs on Google. Cool drum songs that shape.
I hope you're
No, I
like Tony Williams or like some.
No,
crazy jazz.
I think for me, it's like the song aspect is what makes it tough because I was listening. I was like trying to. I have distinct early memories of Led Zeppelin and only hearing the drums for the most part. I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like what is like Immigrant Song, all this stuff. But Black Dog sticks out in my brain as one that I remember. Again, like you said, Ben, I don't really play like him. A lot of people wish they could play like him. You know what I mean? Like anyone that says like, oh, I play like him.
Still,
all right,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But Black Dog, I just remember the space that he put in it. It's just the ability he would just stop. You know, whoever wrote it, whether it's Jimmy Page or whatever, like just that, and then coming in with the fill, and then the way he like does stuff, and then he would stop. Like I just remember thinking like that shifted my brain going back to how as a early drummer, it's like, how do I just play all the time? Just want to be playing fills, and then hearing that and being like, whoa, like it's simple, even though now when you listen to that groove, you're like, it's not that simple. But
right.
to like an average listener, you're like, oh, it's got this like ebb and flow and stopping and going. And then he goes to the ride. And like, I just remember, but I would say the majority of Led Zeppelin stuff as a kid, I would just hear it and be like, dude, what? And the way it was mixed too. Like the drums are so
crazy.
Clear and loud.
He's like a Ronnie Vanucci. He's like, I would say like he knew when to showboat and when to lay back.
And and some of his showboating is only showboating if you know what he's doing. Like
it's also
my
so
dad,
musical
too.
That's
what I'm saying. Like
it's
the song.
Like Moby Dick, like it's a solo,
Correct.
but it's so musical. It's like it's
so
kind
musical.
of it's so insane. Yeah,
and it's so iconic and like just he could showboat when he needed to, and he would also be able to play stuff that, like I said, to the average listener just fit the song, but as a drummer you do the like, oh my god, like, oh, you know what I mean, like what is he doing?
Face, you're like,
you're like, oh yeah, the stink face is perfect.
Yeah.
But that was early. I remember just that was the shift, especially because like there's a lot of Beatles growing up, and I just loved those songs and they make me like happy. But then hearing Led Zeppelin, I'm like, oh, there's a drummer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nothing against Ringo. Like
poor Ringo, dude. I mean, but
no, I still like. I think he played for the song. He was definitely a band member. Didn't give a shit about drumming.
He had
another guy
too.
another guy who's the only person that could have played in that band.
I agree. I fully agree.
Because I mean, like it's like the same thing with Grohl on like Nevermind and stuff like that. They both wrote hooks, like fills and hooks and parts that like are very hooky and very hard, you know.
Those type of drummers I would say spoke into my style by far the most. Like Dave Grohl, like I know it's kind of like, it's funny because it sounds like such the go-to, like John Bonham, Dave Grohl.
There's a reason why.
But I do think that's it. But even Zach from Jimmy Eat World, I'd say I don't know which song I would pick from them either. But early on, I remember the same thing. I'm like, dude, this dude just plays the right parts. He does fills that are interesting. Like the one that to this day, I still rip. Like he was the king of that. Like you know, like just this thing that I'm like, I've ripped him off a billion times. Like,
well, and he knew when to not play fills because Cautioners, like I mentioned, like there's no fill in that song.
There's no fill.
He just plays the beat the entire time.
When we do inevitably have him on, I want to talk to him about how much of that of
It's him.
Bleed American specifically, and how much Trombino pushed him to do specific things.
Yeah, but
on
if you
that,
listen to
because
Clarity,
it is, but the playing on Clarity is a lot more like of the time, like robotic and of the time. There's some putating
Emo-y
stuff
things,
on
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Lucky Denver Mint too. There
there was such
Yeah.
a jump in the like maturity of the playing, and I'm sure part of that was they probably were touring a shitload at that.
yeah.
I'm sure, like, you know, that spoke into it too. But I would be
Yeah, but
interested to
Trombino,
hear.
did Trombino do Futures also?
I don't know.
No,
No.
Futures was what's his name? Damn it, you're gonna.
who
I
did
don't think
who
it
did
was-
who did Clarity? Did Trombino do Clarity?
Trombino
Yeah, he
did
did. Yeah, he
Clarity,
did.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, he did?
yeah, he did do it. So we were saying who did Futures is what?
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
All right, we can cut
I'm
this.
I'm googling. Yeah,
Gil
no,
Norton.
it's all right.
Gil
Yeah,
Norton.
Gil
Gil
Norton. Wow,
Norton
that's-
did
that makes
Futures,
sense
and
too.
Futures is another one that came out. I was just like, oh my god, dude!
Well, Gil
Like,
Norton is a,
drums on
yeah.
that record.
Yeah, that Phil, the work, the it's
Yeah.
so sick.
Dude,
Yeah,
it's
so
just
good.
iconic, and
Yeah.
it's so pop. That is
Right,
so
right,
pop,
so
like
pop.
that level of like. But yeah, so I don't know the name of the song, but I'd say Jimmy World, like something within his thing.
Yeah,
Damn, dude, Gil Norton had a run, man.
yeah,
Yeah, he
he
did.
some wild records.
He did that. He did a Market Mission. He did that. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
That's
right,
really?
yeah. Mine are, the first one is the first song I actually remember here. I mean, I'm sure I heard songs before this, but my dad is a huge Paul Simon guy.
Sick.
And
Very sick.
the first song I remember hearing when I was a little kid was 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover.
Great song.
Gad, baby, Steve Gad.
And that song, I obviously don't play, I still can't play that part.
Nah,
But
nah.
I always try to figure that out. But that part, I think the best part of that song is that, well, first of all, that drum part is the hook of that song. It's also very robotic and leaves a ton of space, but there's so much, the hi-hat and snare part are really robotic, but when he adds that floor tom hit, there's so much soul in the placement of that floor tom hit that it breaks the robotic nature of that song.
Yeah,
And then when he comes out of it into the chorus, he's just like playing a straight
yeah.
groove. And that when I listen to that now, I go like, oh my gosh, like even when I come up with stuff for the weather, or like I was playing with Copeland, even like helping me understand John Bucklew's parts to fill in with Copeland. There's a lot of that, like the versey stuff is a little showboaty, and then what's the famous
Butterflies or whatever, fireflies.
Is it the Freaking Me Out song?
yeah
Freaking me out.
anyway,
Is that the
there's
one that it is?
Keep going, Nate.
Yeah, Nate, keep going. What
Keep
is
going.
Is that the chorus? You're freaking me out.
Wait, what album is
the
that?
verse of that. It's on the major label
Eat,
one.
sleep, repeat, right?
Eat, Sleep, Repeat.
That song, the verse of that song is like, has a lot of the like ride putatingy stuff. And then it comes into the chorus, which is just a straight hi-hat, snare, kick groove. And I was like, when I started learning about that, I was like, oh, I understand songs, I think, through the lens of 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover when I'm trying to play them. And then the second one is an Elliott song called Bleed In, Breathe Out on the last record, Song in the Air. I think Elliott's my favorite, probably one of my favorite bands ever, but I followed their same trajectory musically, that I was like really into punk and hardcore, and then slowly it got softer, and I did it kind of on the same timeline. And that song is like a slow volume build into this insanely robotic, like droning, tons of ghost notes, like a freight train through molasses. And then he hits this one ride that's so loud in the mix, and it has a shitload of reverb on it, and he comes right back in. And I think the sort of like, I love those drum parts that are sort of, it sounds like it could be a drum machine, but it's obviously played by a person, and there's a lot of like
that stuff.
slowing down and speeding up. And I think especially with the weather, I'm just trying to play that part over, in every song.
Find your own version of it.
My own version of that. And that was, I think, hearing that when I was coming from listening to basically nothing but punk and metal and hardcore, and then buying that record and getting to that song and being like, oh, there's stuff going on outside of No Effect.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that you're saying the drum machine thing. Another one real quick was Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders. I used to play along to that, and it's the same thing what you were saying, Jordan. I just love. I mean, that's obviously drum machine and sampled, but like there's that side of
drumming,
just music that just I love.
I actually think, not to transition out of this quickly, but that's
Yeah.
a good thing. Like people, I think the digital, like we were talking earlier about recording digitally versus tape and doing it in, chunks or whatever.
Yeah.
I think genre wise, the genre that has changed the most from technology is hip hop.
100%.
I think all of that old hip hop stuff is so good because even though it was samples, it was a person's finger doing it in time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
now it's all on a
Gridded.
grid and a laptop.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also those samples were somebody actually playing. Yeah, so it is an actual drum part and somebody played it, but yeah, it being cut up because I mean, as soon as the sampler got invented, it changed everything.
Yeah,
Like,
you're actually doubling the humanity because it's a person playing it and then a person playing it again on a digital machine.
Yeah,
So-
which is so cool. I mean, that's the other thing I like. Sometimes not all remixes because they're not all good, but some remixes are like great because you're like, oh wow, this is like such a different version of that song, and somebody's rethinking the part, and I think that's cool too. But
all right, dudes.
this is
That
good.
was a good one. That was
Nobody
informative.
said a bad joke. I stopped myself from doing a Nate at 13-year-old voice when he's talking about singing high in the car.
Wow, way to show restraint.
I don't think that episode could come out, dude. The more that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, maybe we're the only ones that think
Really?
it's funny, dude.
Dude, I was telling Jordan, I was playing it on the couch and like Angela's listening, and I told Jordan, Angela was like laughing. She's like, what is going on? But I hit a spot where even listening back, I was there and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is still going. Like I did hit a spot where I was like, eventually, like I also wondered if my stuff about was too, when you were like, do you think he regrets it? I was like, for sure. And I'm like, dang it, that was not very nice.
Yeah, you were pretty much like
I was just like, I guess my thought process was like, yeah, there's no way he's like, oh, thank God I didn't get a shot at playing in a band that.
No, but the way it came out,
maybe there's a silver lining.
The way it came out, Nate, was like, you're like, yeah, he definitely regrets that.
That's what I mean. I was like, oh boy. I was like, I've just decided to let this ride. I told Angel, I was like, I'm just talking and I almost forget that we're putting it out, but I think that's what's good. Like even like, I don't care, but I'm like, we're just talking about all of it, like playing hammered and smoking weed. And I'm just like, I don't care. At
Well,
this
that was
point,
was that the episode that was about like Bibles and condoms and shit too, and just like
Dude,
unhinged
yep.
at the end?
Same one. Yeah, I was unhinged.
All right. See you later.